I am going to make a project. I've tried to do as much in advance as I could, but I also want to show what the machine can do while I'm making that project. So we'll talk about the machine, we'll use the machine, and then I'll finish putting the project together. So this is the Stampin' Cut Emboss Machine, the standard size, and you can see that it folds up for easy storage. I actually haven't had to store mine yet because I've been using it so much. But the only thing you have to do if you watched my live video when I first got it is to put the handle on. And it comes with all the tools and supplies you need to do that. So nothing special really needs to happen in order to put that handle on. So that makes it really easy. So in order to use it, you'll just bring those sides down and it's ready to go. Now what I have noticed that is a little bit different between this and the Big Shot. It seems a little bit wider. You know that we have some really wide embossing folders. They fit, I think they're 6 by 6. And sometimes when you put those through the Big Shot, you got it snagged on its way in. It's a little bit harder to snag those going through here. So I kind of feel like it's a little bit of a wider base, so it's easier to get in there. Also, before you can send it through, it's got to clear this section here. So I really like that too, because if you've got it in a little kitty wampus, you can straighten it out before it actually starts going into the machine. So I do like that as well. There are suction cups at the bottom, and they really do work. I'm lifting it here, but it's not moving. It's moving the camera holder, but it's not moving the machine. So there are suction cups on the feet. A nice spot to grab while you're cranking. And what I've noticed, at least, the crank is a little bit easier to turn. So I like all of those features of this Stampin' Cut Emboss Machine. Now when you get it, it comes with what they would call maybe plate number 1. This is the base. So the base, you can see there's a number 1 here. So when you go to do any of these pieces, you'll be able to see exactly how the sandwich should look. And I really like that. So if you're using, it says using with thin dies. Now, if you're using with thin dies, you can see it starts with number 1, and then you need number 2. Number 2 is the thin plate. We had that with the Big Shot as well. So the thin plate goes next, but you don't cover the instructions when you put that thin plate on, because the thin plate has the instructions as well. So that makes it really easy if you're using it for the first time to make sure that you're putting your sandwich together correctly. So you've got your 1, your 2, and then you get your 3 next. And the 3 is the cutting plate. And you can see I've been using mine a little bit, and they do suggest flipping it and using it both ways. So don't just feel like you have to use it where you can read the 3 the right side up. Flip it both ways so that it doesn't get warped. You know, it has a tendency to do that when you use the cutting plate the same way every time. So keep that in mind. Use it both ways. So then after the 3, then you see you've got your cardstock and your die, and then another number 3. So we're gonna use that right away. So here's my other number 3 plate. But before I do that, I've got to get, I stamped happy anniversary here. So I'm going to put that down. And keep in mind, we do not yet have the magnetic plate. So, and actually, I've gotten into the habit of not using that much anyway. So I feel like I'm in pretty good shape. What you can do if you're concerned about the shifting when you put your top plate on, you can go ahead and put some washi tape across there, or you can put a sticky note across there, and then make sure that that die holds. And then of course the final plate number 3 will go on top. So you always want to make sure you've got those clear cutting plates on top and bottom like it says for these dies. So what I've done is I've cut out the stitched oval for my project, and it says happy anniversary. So that is the very first set of instructions on your plate, and we do not need this one anymore. This one is just when you are using the dies. So you don't have to worry about this for the embossing folders at all. So I'm going to put that away. And now we're going to look at the second thing that it talks about here, and that is using with standard embossing folders. So when you're using with standard embossing folders, but you're not sure if it's a standard embossing folder or not, go ahead to the catalog. I just had it sitting here. Here it is. If you go to the catalog where the embossing folders are, and if you see where it says 3D, that's not a standard embossing folder. Here's another 3D, here's another 3D, here's another 3D, but here, that one doesn't say 3D, so that means it is a standard embossing folder. The ones that I'm gonna show you right now are the Meadow Moments. Those I think would be fun for fall cards as well as spring and summer. But it's got, I like this leafy pattern. I don't know if you can see that. And these are standard. You can tell because they're thinner. You know, they're easy to put through. So I'm going to grab a piece of cardstock. I'll just grab the one that I used for my die just a minute ago. But you can see here on the plate when you're using a standard embossing folder, you need number 1, which is this one. And then you need number 3, which is this one. And then you need your folder with your cardstock in it, and then you need another number 3. So this is pretty much the same type of sandwich as your Big Shot, for instance. So we're just going to put that cardstock into our folder. That goes next. And then another number 3 plate goes last. So we're going to crank that through. Like I said, it seems to me that it's a little bit easier to crank. I'm sorry for the shaking of the camera. So that is how that one works. All right. So standard embossing folders in the catalog are using both of those number 3 plates. All right, let's go on to the last one. Using with 3D embossing folders. So I talked about that when I showed you the catalog. And actually before I put it in, it's just plate number 1, the folder and the paper, and plate number 4, which we haven't looked at yet. So we're going to put that here. And notice this is plate number 4. Hopefully you can see that. All right. And it also says this is not a cutting surface. So that helps you remember, I'm not supposed to be using that one. All right, so for our project today, I'm going to grab just a piece of 4 by 5 1/4 Whisper White cardstock. And then the, I can't remember what it's called, Tasteful Texture 3D embossing folder. This is one that I've been using a ton since it came out. And I like how it has the nice line at the bottom so you can line up your cardstock and make sure it's straight. Okay, so remember it goes base plate number 1, your embossing folder and paper, and then number 4. It's very similar to the Big Shot. All right, so then that plate number 4 is just what you need. It's just enough to put that through and get the texture that you want. Okay, now that covers what's in the current catalog. But one thing that you have to remember is if you've had some embossing folders for a while and you had the really thick ones that were made by Sizzix. This sandwich is a little bit different because this would be considered a 3D embossing folder. However, it is thicker than the 3D ones that we currently have in the catalog. So, and that's because Sizzix had the rights to this size of folder. So when Stampin' Up! Started making their own folders, they had to make it a different size. So that kind of explains what happened there, in case you were curious. But so the thicker embossing folders are a little bit different, and I had to play around with it to see what was going to work. So I'm just going to put a piece of cardstock in my wood grain embossing folder, and now for a 3D, remember, we would use plate number 4. But what I discovered is that it's going to be plate number 1, embossing folder and cardstock, and then plate number 3 instead. And if you do it that way, it's going to go through without much of an issue, and then it will emboss like you want it to. Okay. Now also, and I didn't think of it until I was sharing the standard embossing folders, but the old standard embossing folders from Sizzix are a little bit thicker than this. So again, you're going to have to play around. I didn't think to grab one. You're going to have to play around to see what kind of a sandwich works best with that. So for this one, we used these two. So that would be the standard embossing folder in the current catalog. But if you're using a standard folder from an older catalog, you might need to try, maybe you'll do a 3 and a 4. I don't know. I haven't tried that yet. So if something seems too tight or too loose, try a different sandwich. So you just have to play around if it's not in the current catalog. Okay, does that make sense? You just need to be aware that you don't want to, if it's really super tight, you don't want to just try to force it through, because it seems as though these are able to go through a little more easily than maybe we're used to on the Big Shot. So I hope that helps a little bit with a few of the quirky things about our new machine. And they're not even really that quirky. They're pretty standard and they're easy to follow. So when you order your Stampin' Cut Emboss machine, you will get all of these plates, and you don't have to worry about something not being available that you need, because this is really all that you need. And then at some point, the magnetic plate will be available, and then that'll be just more of a convenience. But right now, everything that you need comes with your machine. So I'm excited. I'm excited to have mine. I've been excited to use it, and it's been a lot of fun to use and easy to use. So I'm super excited for you to get yours and use yours as well. So now let's, this project is one that I did. Oh my goodness. It's been, I think in June, I did a 10 for 20 class, and we made this card, and I thought it was perfect because I could show you how to use a couple of the different things in the project. So if you took this class, you're not going to see anything brand new, but if you didn't, I think you're going to really like this card. So I'm starting with a piece of cherry cobbler that is 5.5 by 8.5. So I have folded that in half now. And then we're going to add a piece of 4 by 5.25 in the middle, and I'm getting to the end of my Stampin' Seal here, so hopefully it cooperates. Sometimes when you get to the end, it gets hard to turn. Okay, so that's just in the middle. And then we're going to take our textured embossing piece, and that's going to go on next. Now you notice that I put my adhesive on the cherry cobbler instead. When I have an embossed piece of cardstock, I don't like to push down on it with my adhesive because it might show the indentations of where I push down. I don't know if that makes sense, but I just put the adhesive on the card itself, and then it seems to go pretty easily. All right, so then I'm taking ornate garden paper. Remember that? Oh my gosh. If you read my blog post from today, I talked about early release products. I talked about what Stampin' Up! Does to keep things exciting throughout the year. And one of them is early release products, which Ornate Garden was an early release. And so it seems like we used it and used it and used it, and then I put it away for a while because I had used it and used it and used it. So now I got it back out again to do this project, and I went, you know what? I should get that out again because that's fantastic paper. Okay, so then dimensionals. I know you're here. I know you're here. We're going to stick 5 of those on there. Remember, I've talked about that, how I don't like it to sag in the middle, so I make sure to put 1 in the middle as well as my 4 corners. And then that is going to go on the front middle of my card. And then next up is our piece of vellum. And this I cut out from dies as well. I just didn't show that on camera. And I'm only going to put adhesive in the middle, and then that's going to get attached to the front of my card. And then I'm actually going to put adhesive in the middle of that, which seems kind of weird. But the Forever Greenery Trim Combo Pack is what I'm going to grab for my gold cord. And you'll note that I have a knot in the end. Excuse me. And that's because it frays really easily. So I always knot it when I cut it off. Excuse me. All right. And then I'm just going to wrap it around 4 fingers 3 times. Snip that off. And then I'm going to let it fray. I don't care anymore. And then, so it makes a loop. Now I'm going to twist that loop and adhere that to the tape that I have down. And then I will trim that knot off. And it can fray at will. And then we're going to take our happy anniversary, put a couple dimensionals on there. And I stamped this with the Mini Mates stamp set. And then you can, in cherry cobbler ink. I'm just going to mess around with my loops. And there you go. Isn't that pretty? I love how that card turned out. I was concerned that it would be too many steps at first, and decided it was worth it. When I do a class like this, I have all of that stuff cut out for you. So basically what you have to do is just stamp your sentiment and then put the card together along with me. So if you are not at the Zoom class when I have a class like this, it's not a big deal because I record that class and then I post it on YouTube as an unlisted video only for the people who have paid for the class. So it works out pretty well for class. And I think that night we made 2 of each of the cards. So everybody got to make 2 of these, and that worked out really well. I always also try to choose a project that black is going to look just fine as the sentiment. And in 99.9% of the cases, black is going to look great.